All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Happy Life Agenda. I'm Dani C, and I am thrilled to chat with today's guest because how many of you out there are job hunting or you're seeking to transition careers and it almost feels hopeless and you just don't know where to start? Well, if that's you, drop everything and please listen to this episode because today I am joined by Marlo Lyons, who has spent more than 20 years inspiring and motivating people in their careers. Her career began as a TV news reporter. She later transitioned to become a lawyer and then found her home in human resources. Today, she takes all of that wisdom and experience and has authored 2 amazing books and is one of the most sought after consultants for people who are seeking to transition their careers or find their dream job. So, welcome, Marlo. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe some of the projects that are keeping you busy today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's so exciting to be here. A little bit more about myself. I don't know. You told my whole background, so you know, like you said, I transitioned careers so many different times. I was a TV news reporter, an entertainment lawyer. I worked in HR, coaching the C-suite actually, and now I work as a globally certified career coach and team coach. And I work with executives. I work with individuals, professionals of all different levels, and all the way up to the C-suite and even board members.
Wow.
I write regularly for Harvard Business Review. I have 2 published books. One is Wanted a New Career, and those are for people who are transitioning careers. And it won the Eric Hoffer Award for Best Self-Help Book. And then
Wow.
also Wanted My First Career, which was just released a few months ago. And that's helping college students who are looking for a fulfilling career. I'm all about fulfillment, not just finding a job and a paycheck. So,
Yes, that's so important.
yes, it is so important. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And I want to move into the first part of our discussion because I know a ton of people that are job hunting and today's market is crazy. The topics all over the media is, people are talking about, the return to office mandates, low wages, and then even the low value that so many organizations are placing on tenure and retention. And so I would love for you to kind of like, just break that down is like, what are your top 3 insights for job seekers that are in this predicament today?
Yeah, it's rough out there and it's not going to change anytime soon. And so I think the very first thing people need to do is reframe the narrative because you have to reframe it from scarcity to strategy. It's easy to fall into despair, right? These headlines about hiring freezes and low retention and return to office, they exist and it's all real and salaries are coming down. So, job seekers just need to shift their energy from that problem to possibility. Because if you think about it, the truth is jobs are being filled. I can tell you right now, my clients are getting jobs. They are landing roles. So there are jobs out there. It's just a matter of your mindset. And that is a differentiator when you're looking for a job because hiring managers aren't just evaluating your skills, they're also evaluating your energy and your resilience. So that would be number one. Number two, you have to know what you want to do, or you have to figure out what you want to do. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you ask people, what do you want to do? They start rattling off other skills and capabilities and everything that they can do. And it's a very different thing to know what you can do versus what you want to do. And you have to know what you want to do in order to create that forward looking resume. 90% of resumes out there are backward looking. They talk about absolutely everything they've ever done. And that is not how you attract recruiters. You attract recruiters with direction and precision in your resume. So they know exactly what skills and capabilities you have for the job that you are applying for right now. That's how you attract recruiters. And so most people have those backward looking resumes. Here's everything I've ever done. Now figure it out. No recruiter's going to figure it out. I can tell you
Right.
that right now. So you have to focus on your skills, not your titles. And don't forget that includes your soft skills as well. That's influence, communication, collaboration, all the things that AI can't do. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing that I think people need to really think about and remember and use this often. Your network is absolutely everything right now. Everything. And so if you don't have a network, now is the time to build one. And every day, yeah, every day you need to focus on expanding your network over applying for jobs. Like that is more important than actually applying for jobs because that's how you get jobs these days. So you're not just focused on the job searching and applying and all of that, you're actually doing the relationship building. And it's the most critical component right now to job searching. And people overlook it. The more hires will happen through people than platforms. So remember that more of the hires will happen through people than platforms. That means people who know you, who have worked with you, who know your character, who know how your passion, who know how hard you work. That's how you get jobs. Internal referrals definitely skip to the top of the pile of applications. So I would say those are the three big ones. And I would recommend reaching out to somebody every single day, whether it's a former colleague, a classmate, a LinkedIn connection, people who work in your dream company or work in your dream role, ask questions and offer to help. You don't build relationships and your network by asking for you actually build it by offering to help. So you want to stay top of mind. And when I say offering to help, I mean it could be little things like, hey, somebody's traveling to Maine and you're like, oh, I've been to Maine. Here are some great places you're going to want to eat. They are phenomenal. Or here's some great kid-friendly places. That's offering to help. It doesn't have to be work related. So whatever you can offer, that's how you build relationships. And then they're like, oh, well, that was nice, right? And maybe they'll want to help you.
Oh,
So
wow, I love that.
those are the three big ones I would say right now in this rough market.
So let's touch on that networking a bit because I know, particularly some of the people that I work with, they're young. This is maybe their first or second job, but they're looking to, now move to the next level of their career. And so you mentioned, LinkedIn, but live networking events have kind of come back. Is there any advice that you have for making sure that they seek the right ones? And it's not like, I don't know, back in the day, I used to go to Chamber of Commerce events and it was just like everybody handing out their business cards and they're there for themselves. So how do they choose the
No.
right networking events?
Okay, so the best networking events are non-networking events. Okay, so what do I mean by that? It means it's summer. Going out to a party, that's a networking event. Going to somebody's house for a barbecue, that's a networking event. Going to a movie, that's a networking event. Who are you sitting next to? On a plane, that's a networking event. Who are you sitting next to? I talk to everybody on a plane, whoever's sitting next to me. That's a networking event. I have people who I've sat next to on a plane who are now in my books because their stories are so phenomenal. And I say, can I put you in my book? And I start taking notes. Everything you do is a networking event that is outside of your house, right? Even inside your house, obviously you've got LinkedIn, but you've got to start looking at your life as a networking event because you have friends, your friends have friends, your parents have friends, you have parents, hopefully. Your parents have friends, they have friends. Everything's a networking event. Everything. So if you look at it that way, and again, you're going in with the goal to either help someone else or to just have a conversation. And you also know what you want. So when they ask you, oh, what are you doing these days? You can tell them, I'm looking for a job. This is exactly what I'm looking for. At the moment, the market's a little bit rough, but I'm keeping my chin up and I'm, out networking and doing all the things that I need to be doing. The attitude comes across, the energy comes across, the passion comes across, and they will want to help you. So look at everything as a networking event. You're out on a boat this summer, that's a networking event. Everything's a networking event. Don't go to traditional networking events. Those are the biggest waste of time. I don't find those to actually be networking events. I went to one not long ago. I try to get out of the house every now and then. So I went to one and you know something? They're uncomfortable and you're like, what should I make small talk about? And I'm a small talk person. I like deep conversation. And then I'm like, and then I'm like, should I hand them my business card? Should I not? Oh, wait, I'm talking to somebody where, yeah, I'm networking with them, but it's really not going to lead to anything. How do I get away from them and go network with someone else? Right? Like, they're just uncomfortable. But if
Yes.
you're on a boat or you're at a barbecue or something, go get a drink, go hang out, just chat, talk, have somebody like you. That's what relationships are, right? It's having somebody who's like, oh, that person's really cool. I want to help them. Or I know someone I want to help. I offer to help people constantly. Because I like them. I know I believe in them. I know that they're ambitious and they're trying hard and they're learning and they're growing. And so that's what you're looking for.
Wow, that's awesome. You just made networking sound so much more fun because like
Totally, right?
it
It
just
doesn't
opened
have
up
to
a
be a
whole
serious
door.
thing. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a serious thing, right? It could be your neighbor, quite frankly, as
Yeah.
a networking event. Like, you're walking the dog, you see your neighbor, stop by, have a chat. They may know someone you don't know, right? Like, everything's a networking event. And then here's the kicker though, like, you're not just networking because you want something. This is about building
Mhm.
relationships, long-term
Mhm.
relationships. You have to keep in touch with people and you have to let them know what's going on. So
Yeah.
after all these different things, right? If you get a job and one of those people didn't help you get the job, let them know. Say, hey, John, I just want to let you know, I had a great time seeing you on the boat, but I want to let you know I landed a job. I'm so excited. Would love to catch up for coffee. You have to keep in touch with people,
Yes.
right? And they want to hear how you're doing. I love hearing how my old clients are doing. I absolutely love it. I love when they reach out, even years later. I always want to know how they're doing. And not because I want them as a client again, because I'm just so happy for them. I'm happy that they're thrilled and people want to know, they want that energy and that happiness as well.
Oh, absolutely. I wanna, take that and then touch on something you said earlier is, we all hate small talk. And one of the things on the happy life agenda journey is, leaning into your purpose and your true identity. And when you start to do that, you stop having the small talk conversations and you just start connecting with people on a whole new level. And so this just kind of like, pours into that and aligning it with your career. So I appreciate that
It
advice.
does.
And I'm sure our listeners do too. That's amazing.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And it gets down to much more deeper conversation where people actually know who you are and they
Mhm.
and they want to help you because they like you for who you are.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. It's still on the same track as like I've read your book, Wanted a New Career, and you really dive into the interview process. And it's probably one of my favorite parts of the book because I've been on both sides as a hiring manager and then also,
Mhm.
getting the job. And, a lot of us approach the job interview with like this desperation, please, please hire me. But
Yeah.
you you do a great job of saying, "Hey, it should be completely different." And I would almost say, like you do with the networking thing, like it can be a lot more fun and it's just this cool conversation. So kind of take us through some of your tips there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about interviewing is that you really have to remember that you are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Yes, you need a
Mhm.
job. Yes, your bank account is getting lower without a job. I get all that. I'm not dismissing any of that by any means. But if you just take a job that doesn't align with your values or doesn't align with what you want, you're just going to be miserable.
Mhm.
It's just not going to work. So you have to align the place that you're going to be working, the environment has to align with your values, and otherwise you're just going from one bad situation to another. So if you're
Yeah.
truly interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, then you're asking questions from the mind frame of curiosity, right? You want to be
Yes.
curious about, like, how is this place going to be? So
Mhm.
if I was going to ask different questions of people to really understand the place that I'm interested in, besides what I've read on their website, which is always going to be rah, 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 right? Um,
Mhm.
I would ask very specific questions to very specific people. So you're going to ask different questions to the recruiter than you're going to ask to the hiring manager, than you're going to ask to the panel, like other people, cross functional stakeholders that you've
Mhm.
interviewed with. So, for example, the recruiter, right? So the recruiter, you want to ask very simple questions because the recruiter has not done the job before. The recruiter does not work in that department unless you're applying for an HR job, right?
Got you.
So you're not going to ask the recruiter what's the day to day in the job
Mhm.
because the
Mhm.
recruiter's not going to know. But the
Right.
recruiter has a lot of information about this hiring manager and has a lot of information about this job. And
Ah.
so what you want to do is you want to ask questions of the recruiter to get an edge, right? When you're interviewing. And
Mm.
when I say an edge, I mean, you want to ask questions like, what are the intangibles the hiring manager is looking for that are not in the job description?
Ah, that's a
Because
good
the
one.
recruiter has met with the hiring manager and learned
Mhm.
all the things that are not in the job description that they really want. I remember
Right.
there was this one leader that I remember was looking for somebody for an engineering job, and they wanted somebody who had invented something from scratch, like the creator of Palm or BlackBerry, long before
Wow.
iPhones, right? And in case, in that case, you're either an inventor or you're not an inventor, right? So if you knew that, even though you have this whole illustrious career in engineering, you would focus on that you know how to innovate in white space, right? Where
Mhm.
nothing existed before. You can
Right.
also, yeah, and then you can also ask the recruiter what makes people successful or unsuccessful at a company because they're at the company, so they will know. And
Right.
I'm a big one on asking about what are the unspoken expectations at the company. And
Ooh, I like
here's what
that.
I mean by that. Yeah, it's a good one because when I worked at a company not long ago, and for the first 6 months, it was so clear. Your only job was to be curious. You were not to
Oh.
provide any advice, any guidance, any big ideas, nothing. just be curious, because they didn't want somebody coming in new and telling them what to do, because their philosophy was, you don't know the business. You haven't been here. You don't know. Right. And they,
Right.
every single time a new leader would come in and they would not heed that advice, they would try to bring up something in a big meeting or whatever, and they would literally be ignored. People would pretend they didn't even say anything.
Wow.
Or yeah, yeah.
That doesn't feel good.
Or they would be shut down, right? And
Oh,
so, or worse, silence, right? So,
yeah.
so I would coach every new leader that came in the door, every, VP, everybody director and above pretty much, and tell them, simply ask questions, everything in the form of a question. And by the way, this is great advice anyway for anybody
Yeah.
starting a new job. Always
Yeah.
ask in the form of a question for the first 6 months, because one of two things is going to happen. If you ask in the form of the question, have we tried X? Either A, X, we've tried it before and we're going to tell you we've tried it and you're just being
Mhm.
curious. Great, you're learning.
Mhm.
But if they
Mhm.
haven't tried it before, then you're brilliant and you're the hero of the day. So either way you win.
Right.
You don't
Right.
win if you say we should do X and they say, well, we've
Mhm.
tried X and it doesn't work and here's why. Well, then you look like, somebody who's not curious and somebody who's just coming in trying to bring in their playbook. So it helps them build relationships quicker by asking questions. So get back to recruiters. You want to ask questions that are going to get you to understand the company and how the company operates. So then hiring managers, you always want to ask questions about what they need you for. Why are they hiring you?
Ah.
You don't ask it that way, of course, right? So,
Hi, my
but
hair.
you want to, yeah, yeah. Why are you hiring me? But what is your number one challenge you expect me to solve in this job in the first 90 days?
Ooh, that's
Right?
so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to know, like, what is the number one
Mhm.
challenge? And then at the end of the year, when you're doing performance reviews, what is the number one thing that will make you consider me a rock star? Right?
Wow. What a great
Right?
question.
Because again, like, if you get the job, you already have an edge, right? You already know
Yeah.
some of these things. And then you can also dig into culture, because I think it's really important. Like, if you need
Mhm.
flexibility, if you need, work-life balance, all these things that people want today, you have to understand what the culture is. And so I
Yes.
always recommend asking questions like, if, tell me about a time you developed somebody on your team, to understand how they develop people, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you're basically throwing that behavioral question back at them, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
how do you support employees with personal differences? And they might say, well, what do you mean? And you could say, well, like working styles or personalities or neurodivergence
Mhm.
or somebody who needs work life balance or flexibility.
Mhm.
How is that supported at the company? You'll
Ooh.
get a really good understanding of whether the company supports any of that.
Wow.
Or
Those are
if your hiring manager says, "God, I don't think I've ever thought about that before. Nobody's ever asked me that before." But right? Like,
Hmm.
interesting. And then those cross-functional stakeholders. Remember, it's what you're going to do for them, right?
Mhm.
It's not you coming
Mhm.
in and taking the job. So you want to ask them, how do they envision the role collaborating with your team? Like, how are you going to be collaborating with them? How do they view this position that you're interviewing for? Because is this
Yeah.
position like taking away some of their work? Is it going to solve their problem? Is it going to cause
Mm.
more confusion? You'll get it in their body language pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
especially if they stumble, ask them, will this position be helpful to your team, or is it duplicative in any way?
mhm. Oh, wow.
Right? So these are really powerful questions to ask, not just the typical what's the culture? How do I be successful? Right?
Yeah.
I also love the question, by the way. Do you communicate with all people at all levels of your organization, or do you stay with just within your level? That'll tell you
Ooh.
all about the hierarchy, right?
Oh, that one's
S-
so good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it's about you managing the interview process as much as they're
Mhm.
managing it, right?
Mhm.
And then my favorite tip, I'm going to tell you my favorite tip. When you write thank you notes. Okay? And
Oh,
you and I talked about this once
yeah.
before, right?
Yeah, this
This
is
is a
so
big
good.
one. Yeah, when you write thank you notes, right? It's not just to the person you're interviewing with. Like, you've interviewed with the recruiter originally, so you write the thank you note to the recruiter. Then you're going to interview with the hiring manager. Okay, I interviewed with the hiring manager. You don't just write the thank you note to the hiring manager. This is your moment to write back to the recruiter and ask to connect, right? Hey, I interviewed with, hiring manager's name, right? Then you want to talk about like a relevant nugget or two that you talked about in the conversation, and then express your enthusiasm even more for the role. And then ask the recruiter if they have a minute to connect once they receive the feedback.
Oh,
Because here's the kicker. The only time you can get feedback during an interview process is during the process. You can't get it at the end when you're out of
oh,
the process. You can get it during the
true.
process. And the
Wow.
recruiter wants to fill the job. They don't care who they fill it with. They want to fill the job because they've got 10 more on their desk.
Yeah.
So that is the time if they got feedback from the hiring manager and the hiring manager said, well, I really liked Marlo, but she was a little too chatty. Okay, your next round of interviews, you're not going to be chatty, right? You're going to be careful on how long you're talking. Or I really liked Marlo, but she didn't really maintain eye contact and she was a little quiet. Next time, you're going to try to do those things. Get the feedback while you can. And that's how
Wow.
you get it. So you always write back to the recruiter after every interview and say, "Hey, I'd love to chat with you for just a minute." You know, and again, keep it short. Don't keep them on the phone for a long time. They're super busy. 10 minutes, just say, hey, is there any feedback that you think I can incorporate into my next round of interviews? Right. Assuming you're moving forward.
Yeah.
They will trust me, that is the time they will actually tell you what it is. And here's the other kicker. You'll learn in case you don't get this
Yeah.
job. Like say you're not number one, say there's an internal candidate, say there's 4 other people that were referred. The point is you're going to learn from that feedback for other interviews. So
Yes.
that's probably the best piece of advice I can give you.
Oh my gosh, those are phenomenal insights. And if I picked up on this correctly, when you were, work-life balance is one of those questions that, as a hiring manager, I got asked, and I've talked about it on some other podcasts. And, you feel like some hiring managers will just say yes. You were saying kind of read their body language. That tells you a lot. So that on that question in particular, do you have any advice on kind of like those like kind of things to look out for when, to kind of parse out, yeah, they really don't have work-life balance, or follow-up questions to ask on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question is, hey, can you tell me about the expectation of being on off hours? Right? Like
Oh,
outside of general working hours. What is the expectation on returning emails? I would just love to understand your expectations so that if I get this job, I can meet the expectations. You always phrase it positively, but
yeah.
really understand, are they expecting you to be on during vacation? I had one company where they had unlimited PTO, but you could not let your job falter while you were gone. So somebody either
Oh,
had to pick it
no.
up or you had to be available. And so
Oh.
you want to understand these things before you take the job. Am I ever going to have a vacation that is completely offline? Do I even want one? Right. Again, that goes back to your values, right? Some people are workaholics
Right.
and they claim that they love that. So you want to check in on their body language also, like if the manager goes, nobody's ever asked me that before. Oh, trust me, they have. They just don't know how to answer it. They don't know how to answer it because it doesn't exist. Or if the hiring manager starts talking in circles, right, that means they don't have a direct answer. Like these are very obvious things. Like you either need me to be on 24 hours a day or you don't. Right, you either need me to
Right.
return your email at 9 o'clock at night or you don't. You either give me a full vacation where I'm not online or I'm online. Like these are not hard answers, right? So if they're talking in circles,
That's a
keep
clue.
in mind they're probably not giving you the straight answer, and they're probably going to do that on any hard question that you ask them when you work for
Wow.
them.
That's wonderful advice. Oh my gosh, thank you. So the next thing that I want to cover, and I'm so excited because I'm excited to hear the answer to this question, is you said you have your own podcast, and you said that, one time y'all talked about, can you get rich from a corporate career? And
Hmm.
so I think, wealth and abundance is a big conversation. And a lot of people, and including myself, I thought if I got on that corporate track, that if I got to the very top, that would be it. But, I've come to realize, at least in my experience, that's not always the be all end all. So kind of give us that insight, is if we're climbing, are we gonna hit that goal?
Well, I guess the question goes back to you. You said it wasn't the end all be all. Your values weren't fulfilled, were they?
No.
Yeah. And that's what it boils down to, right? It boils down to whether your values are fulfilled. And
Yeah.
too often, people don't stop. They don't pause. They don't think about
Mhm.
what is important to me. That's what your values are. It's that simple. If your values are fulfilled, you will be fulfilled. Your values are what's important to you. So, what's important to you is going to be very different than what's important to me.
Right.
You can even have the same word as a value, like the word flexibility. And you say
Mhm.
flexibility means I want to control my day and my hours. And flexibility to me might mean I want to get to my kid's basketball game. Totally different values,
Oh,
same word, right?
yeah.
So you have to understand what your values are and what they mean to you. And then once you understand that, you can align your career to your values. Now, if your corporate career is aligned to your values and you find a job that is aligned with your values, whether you're transitioning careers or you're in the same career, but you're finding maybe you need a different boss or you need a different environment or something
Mhm.
like that,
Mhm.
then you can be fulfilled. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I work with clients every day who I start at the beginning with their values, and we work on finding either a transitional career that they want to do, not can do, want to do, based on their values, right?
Mhm.
Or what in their current environment is not working for them, and can they adjust, not their values, but can they do something to impact that? Right. So if you work for a
Mhm.
boss and the boss is a micromanager,
Mhm.
and they're driving you crazy because it's violating your values day in and day out because you like independence and to own things. Is there anything
Mhm.
you can do to stop them from micromanaging? Well, you're like, well, I can't control my boss. Oh, yeah, there are things you can do. You can send them an update email every single Friday that tells them, here's what was accomplished this week. Here's the challenges I'm having and need some help. And here's what's coming up next week. They're not going to call you bugging you all day long, are they?
No.
Right?
Mm-mm.
So
Mm-mm.
that's my point. Is there something you can do that can allow your values to be honored? Right?
Wow.
So you can work a corporate job, but you have to understand what your values are. So for example, say you have a value of security, right?
Mhm.
And that means
Mhm.
having a paycheck,
Yes.
knowing what you're working on every day, collaborating with others, then yes, you're going to probably want to
Mhm.
work in a corporate career. You have to find the right environment that matches all of your values. But if you have a value of owning your own time during the day, and that is your most important value, perhaps not. Perhaps not.
Huh?
You're going to, right? Unless you're maybe in a smaller environment or a family run company or something like that. But you're probably not going to own your hours. You're probably going to have set hours to be working.
Right. Mhm.
So, aligning your values to your career is the number one most critical step. And that is what I talk about in both of my books. From the very beginning, I tell people you must understand what is important to you first. That's where you get to what I want to do. And you can probably tell, like, I'm gloriously fulfilled in my career, gloriously. There were times I wasn't. And I would figure out, all right, what's not fitting right here? What doesn't feel
Mhm.
right? But when I hit coaching, when I finished my coaching certifications, and I knew it. I knew in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it. And I
Wow.
love my job every single day. Now, do I love billing clients? No. Do I love, doing the paperwork? No. Nobody, you're not going to love every little thing of every little
Right.
job, but I can tell you that I am overall 100% at peace and fulfilled. And that's what fulfillment is. It's this higher level of peace, this higher level of I can't even explain it. It's like this glorious feeling of every day you wake up even so much happier than happy. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
it
It's
does.
it's
Mhm.
it's a peace. It's this peace and knowing is what it is. I so that's what I tell people. So corporate, going back to corporate. Want to work in corporate? Don't despair. Yes, you can get rich in corporate. Right? You can. You can get rich working for corporate your whole lives because, and you could be happy and you could be fulfilled working for
Mhm.
corporate as long as you understand what your values are. You don't have to go out on your own because not everybody's made for entrepreneurship. I
That's
certainly
true.
was scared out of my mind when I went out on my own. So, and I'm sure you are as well. Like it's scary. It's scary to go out
Yes.
on your own.
It is scary, but I liked what you said, the fulfillment, and that's kind of, again, one of the things that we talk about at the heart of the mission of the Happy Life Agenda is that, like, when you show up as your authentic self, when your values align with the things that you're doing, you wake up every day and you're excited for the day and you're excited for what you're doing. And yes, it's not moment to moment. Everything is wonderful. You have those little things, but you can get through those things because on the other side of that is all the other stuff that you love. And so I really like that
Exactly.
that's at the heart of this. That's amazing.
And it's true. And people always ask me like, yeah, but you can't get wealthy working in corporate. Yes, you can. Because
Mhm.
gaining wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you spend and how much you save.
Right.
And so,
Yep.
you know how you always see those people out there that are, working in a car lot parking cars, and then they die and they left $1 million donation somewhere. You're like, wait, what? So because it's about the saving, right? And if you're
Mhm.
not saving, no, you can't get rich. If it's more important to you to go get that $6 latte every day versus putting
Mhm.
that $6 away, then yeah, you're probably not, right? But you do have to
Yeah.
keep in mind things like 401k, ESPP, like that's not enough. That's
Mhm.
not going to be enough for you. So you have to look at what is your strategy. And the number one piece of advice I always give every single person that asks me this, no matter what forum I'm speaking in, it doesn't matter. They say, what is your number one piece of advice? Get a certified financial planner. Period. End of discussion. Like, number one piece of advice has nothing to do with your career, has nothing to do with anything. Get a CFP. And the reason I say this is because you want them to put a plan together for you so that when you want to retire or you don't want to work or whatever your plan is for your life, you
Mhm.
have it all there and you know what you need to be doing. And it's not a big guessing game. And that way, when you turn 50 or 60 or whatever, 70, 80, and you want to retire, you have money, you can do what you want to do, and your life is planned out. So I always say, number one piece of advice in anything in your career, get a CFP. And
That
you can go with the big guys, go with the Schwabs, go with the, whatever the big guys are out there. You can do that if you don't know who to choose. They're all CFPs there.
that's such good advice. In fact, I think when we were planning this podcast, that was the first thing that you said to me is like, "Hey, let's get a certified financial planner." And I
Didn't I?
really,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and I appreciate that advice because I've interviewed a few on my podcast, and the things that they tell you, you're just like, it's eye opening, but it's your money, and that's how you're gonna be able to support yourself without having to work all the time if you do it right.
Yeah. And if you go back to your values, money means different things to different people, right? So
Mhm,
I always ask
mhm,
people, what does money mean to you? Because I think it's really important to understand. Does it mean the Lamborghini, right? Can I show off to
mhm.
others or whatever? It could mean that. And not that the Lamborghini means that, but hey, I just want a really fast car, right? Or it could mean
Right.
I want to show everybody else I have money. Or it could mean
Right.
security. It could mean
Mhm.
stability. It could mean I want to take care of my family. It could mean I want to take care of my parents. It could mean I want to pay off my mortgage. You have to understand what money means to you. That's a very big value for people, and it means
Absolutely.
something to everyone. So bring in a full circle, understand what money means to you, and then meet with the CFP and figure out how to get to where you want to be. Because if your money values are fulfilled, again, what happens? You'll be
You're
fulfilled.
I
Yeah, exactly.
love it. Oh my gosh. I love it, Marla. I love the foundational elements that you have here. And listeners, if you're taking anything to heart, it's like fulfillment in what you're pursuing. And so I think Marlo is a fantastic coach to reach out to for those of you that are job hunting and consulting, because at the end of the day, you're going to find something that fills your cup, and that's worth $1 million, if not more.
Oh, there you go.
So,
Exactly. And being fulfilled is the best thing that will ever happen to you.
yes. Well, Marlo, where can everybody find you? What's your
Yeah.
website? Where are you on socials? Tell us all about that.
Oh, I'm all over the place. So you can find me at marlolyonscoaching.com, and that's Lyons. So Marlo Lyons Coaching. You can find me on LinkedIn, Insta, Facebook, TikTok at times. I TikTok a little bit here and there, but they're all Marlo Lyons Coaching. And then you can also listen to my podcast as well, which
Ooh,
is Work Unscripted. And it's called that because it's all about work and it's unfiltered. So you can
ooh.
imagine I've worked on the HR side, I've worked on the business side. And so I've seen a lot,
I bet you know some secrets. Oh my goodness.
just a few.
Well, fantastic. And for those of you who are regular listeners to Happy Life Agenda, you can go to happylifeagenda.com. I'll be posting links to all of Marlo's books, podcasts, her socials, so you can find those easily there if you weren't able to write that down because you're driving or something. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe below and follow us on social to join in on the conversation. Marlo, thank you again for being here.
Thank
We'll
you
see
for
you guys
having
next
me.
time. You're so welcome. Talk to you soon.